Tycondrius here, doing another action figure review, and today we are having a look at the Hiya Toys Gi Joe Cobra Baroness figure. Now this is one I was quite excited for. As I said previously, I haven't picked up too many of the Hiya Toys Gi Joe figure line, mainly because they're hard to get over here and they're all import figures. So anywhere that's, I haven't seen anywhere that's selling them locally. I've had to pick up most of mine. I picked up the Destro from Locker Toys, and Baroness here I got from Cool Club Toys, or Cool Club Collector. I'm not sure the exact name of it, but I picked her up from that. Because in addition, when I picked her up, I picked up both Shredder, the Joy Toy 1/18 scale Turtles, TMNT Shredder, and Foot Soldier, which I will get around to doing a review of, hopefully. But for now, today's review is for the Baroness. So, as stated, I have done a review for Destro. So I'll just bring in Destro's card back so you can see how similar the card backs are. Now, I haven't gotten any of the Joe team figures, so I'm not sure if there's a difference between the good guys versus bad guys figures in respect to how they're presented on the card back. The logo could have the full color banner on it, but for Baroness here, you can see the card backing is exactly the same practically as Destro's, the only difference being the card art of the character within. So flipping around the back of the boxes, you can see again, exact same detailing. There's no bio card like you would get on the classic G.I. Joe characters. Instead, you have a QR code and have a whole bunch of legalese stuff in both English, mixture of both English and Chinese. Hiya is a Chinese company, so for the most part, it is fairly simplistic for the bubbles. I will say that I kind of wish they went with a collector style bubble card on the figure so that you don't damage the packaging when you're taking it out. Kind of similar to how Boss Fight Studios does their stuff, where you just flip up a little tab at the back and just move up the card art out of the way, and you're able to put it back in if you want to. But unfortunately, it is what it is. And so we'll have a look at the figure and her accessories. So just like with Destro, she has a few more accessories than Destro does, but we'll get on to kind of the main kind of similar accessories between the figures, and that is the bases. Each figure comes with a base. Her one, if I can grab Destro's, I believe is identical. Is it identical? It looks like it is identical. Maybe not, actually. No, it is slightly different. It has a similar vein, but it is actually slightly different. There's this kind of mine looking thing is here. It's in different corners. The foot pegs are in, depending which way you have it. There's what looks like shell casings and has kind of a mud motif going on. You do get the I or H clips depending on which way you want to put them. So if you have the ones for her, we'll just pop that in and connect it to Destro's base. And what I'm going to do, because I have it handy, now this base is off one of the Judge Dredd figures. I'm going to pop this one off. Hopefully the piece won't fly away. That's actually off one of the Destro ones, but we'll get kind of a more contemporary figure base. And I'll have a couple of them stretched together. These muddied ones are actually from the Predator line, the Alien vs. Predator and Predator line. And the Metal Grid one is from the Aliens. So they kind of, for the Predators, they gave a mud base. For the Aliens, they gave this kind of metal grate base. And then you can see how similar in design the mud base and the G.I. Joe one is, if you can catch that on screen. This has a lot more browner paint apps to it. but it is similar. It just doesn't have the shell casings and what looks like a embedded mine on the ground. But for the most part, it is pretty much the same. So that brings us to the figure herself. And again, she has accessories. 3 of which, well, technically 4 if you count one of the other ones. But weapons side, 3 of her weapons are on her when you get her in the packaging. So she has these 2 pistols on her leg holsters on either side. And then she has this dagger, which is actually removable, on her back. Now, I will stress, heating this figure up before doing any posability on her is a must, because the joints are very tiny, and when you get her first, they're very stiff. So you're best off heating the figure up before you even consider moving any of the joints. Let's see if I can bring up the head sculpt. Now, most people really like this figure except for one point, and that is the head sculpt. The head sculpt, I think, is where the figure is let down the most. We'll get into that in a second. But from what you can see, she has a 2-tone hair scheme. She has this black to purple hair. She almost has like a goth style kind of hairdo, or hairstyle, I suppose. Or what would be another, would it be goth? It probably would be goth style kind of thing. And she does have an alternate hairpiece, so it has a bit more of a wave to it, kind of off to the side. And if I pump her hair, hopefully I won't pop the head off at the same time. It is a little tricky to get in. There is a big plug on the top of her head. There is a corresponding point on the hairpiece, and then it puts the hair into perspective for her. So when she has this alternate headpiece on, it kind of gives her a more angled head look, whereas the standard one kind of gives her a bit more leeway, because it's sculpted in such a way it kind of you can only get certain looks to it. So it does give her angle her head quite a bit, whereas the kind of standard hair still kind of gets in the way of the head movement, because it is on a ball joint, but it is unfortunately what it is. And then for her only other accessories, she does come with a Uzi machine gun with a silencer. The silencer is actually removable, so just be careful with that piece. It could end up getting lost if you move it around the place. It is very possible. And then she comes with an alternate pair of hands. So her hands are tiny. Again, stress being very, very careful with her, because if I bring in Destro's spare hands, you can see the size of Destro's hands compared to hers. Her hands are absolutely minuscule, whereas Destro's hands are actually quite chunky. They're still quite small as an accessory, but her ones just are ludicrously small as an accessory. So she comes with a grip hand for left and right and a trigger finger hand for left and right. It is really hard to tell the trigger finger hand from the grip hand, because they're so small, they almost look identical, but there is a trigger finger hand left, right, and grip hand. Now I have her left grip hand in and her trigger finger hand on her right hand. When she comes defaulted in the box, she comes with the grip hands, so you will have to swap out those hands for the trigger finger hands should you want her to hold her weaponry and her Uzi. They're like the pistols and the Uzi. So if you're wondering, actually, before I get into comparison time of a figure that she is based on, I'm going to do a quick comparison of her with some similar figures, and I'm going to bring in my tape measure so you can see how tall she actually is. So you can see she does stand around the 4-inch, so it is 1 to 118, not 3 3/4 inch. There is a small difference between those. So if I bring in her first iteration, bear in mind this is the reissue figure, not the original, but it is based exactly on the original sculpt. This is how she looked originally back in, was it 1984? I want to say 83, 84, I think was when she was first initially drafted into the Cobra line. This one is actually the reissue figure that comes packed with Megatron in the Transformers crossover. The one thing I really like about the Transformers crossover line is that they went with retro figures kind of the time for the vehicles that they are based on. So I don't think I actually got around to doing a review for Megatron. So Megatron comes with Baroness. I do have Soundwave, which is the Dreadnought Thunder Machine, which comes with both Zartan and Zarana. The Gi Joe side of things, you got Bumblebee coming with Stalker, which I do want to pick up. Bumblebee is an Awe Striker, and the most recent one is the Triple T tank with Sergeant Slaughter, and also comes with Leatherhead or Leatherneck. I always mix those ones up. I think it's Leatherneck, the Marine. So for another iteration of Baroness, I will bring in, now I'm not sure if this is the right head that should be on this figure. I believe it is, but this is one of the more recent 25th anniversary figures. In fact, I believe this might be the 50th version reissue that actually had more paint apps, because I think they added that silver into the bodice piece of her armor later on, whereas the first version of the figure had a more red symbol like the one here in the middle, but I don't think it had the kind of silver wash inside the armor plating. So, but I think the head is the right head sculpt. I could be wrong, because I know they reissued the body a couple of times with different heads, and I think this might be one of the ones I did customize one or two just over the years after having her, because this figure is nearly 20 years, nearly 20 years old now at this stage, which is crazy to think. So there is a few iterations of Baroness in a similar scale, and what I'll do is I'll bring in one more iteration because it is what I want to showcase, and then we'll get cracking on her articulation. So if this entire sculpt looks somewhat familiar, that is because she is based on this version, well, loosely based on this version, in the sense that they kept the shoulder pad armor, they kept the kind of chest armor, the belts. The only main difference is instead of having the dagger on her leg, they opted to do a dagger on her back, and instead of having the twin pistols on her back, so if I turn around, I know she's missing one of her pistols, but she has twin pistols that are similar design to the ones that come with her. They actually opted to have them on her on leg holsters instead. Now this is the Cobra Island version of Baroness, which came with the bike, I believe, the kind of special bike. She also came with a weird Cobra, silver Cobra weapon thing that would coil around her hands. The head sculpt on this one is far superior, even though you can see what they were kind of aiming for. It's the glasses, I think, is really what kills this figure, even though in the past, like, even her original form of glasses have never been perfect. She had these really big round rimmed glasses. Again, over time they've done different types of glasses for her. Oops, sorry, I hit the button. These are, I believe, the glasses off one of the other versions. You could, in theory, if you wanted to, let's see if this works. It might work. You'd have to, these I believe are the glasses off the Rise of Cobra Baroness. You could technically use those, glue them on over. You'd have to shave off the edges where it meets the hairpiece, but you could kind of use these on this figure. Might improve it a bit, but I think there might be other options out there, and maybe alternate head sculpts. You might be able to pop this off. So I'm going to leave the hairpiece off because it shows more of the range of movement on the head, which is a shame because it is on a ball joint, and you get a full range 360 without the hairpiece, and it is tilted side, up and down, depending on which hairpiece you have in or plugged on. You just get that to plug in. It is a bit tricky. Is that in? Yep, that is in. So you can get side to side. You can get some tilt. You can't really get back, but you can just really just about get a little bit of side to side. The arms, the shoulder gauntlet pieces or the shoulder pads here will get in the way of the arms. They are glued on here lower down. They do allow her to T-pose about that much, but you're not going to get a huge amount. You might get a bit more if you push them, but then you risk them sticking like that when you push the arm down. The arm can rotate 360 though. There is a single jointed elbow with a swivel. Her hands are on a ball peg system, so you can get good range of movement out of the hands depending which hand you have in. She does have a double waist system, so she has the diaphragm crunch, which gives her a good tilt forward and back. There is a lower waist, which is super tight, so just be careful moving it. And then she has hips that allow her to do the splits. She can kick forward. She can't kick forward greatly because she has a sort of diaper crotch thing going on, which means when you get her into this sort of seated position, her legs splay out. She does have a thigh swivel, which is hidden by the straps on the holsters. She has a double jointed knee system, which is quite nice. And then she has the kind of rocker ankle. She doesn't get much movement in the rocker ankle because of the way the armor plating for the feet are sculpted. But she does have movement in the feet. And she does have 2 peg holes on the bottom of her feet. And the legs do tend to pop off. They do click back in. Now, she is fairly posable, but here is where things get a little messy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video here for a second, and I'll be back with a couple of things to show why. So bear with me, I'll be right back. Okay, so this is kind of the big bone of contention with this figure, with this Baroness. Can she fit in vintage vehicles? She can to an extent, in the sense that she can fit in the gunner section of a HISS tank, no bother. But she has mucho problem. In fact, she can't even sit in the seated position in a HISS tank because her hips, I don't even think if the holsters were removed from her hips would make a difference, because the way her legs splay out, she can't get into a seated position. Right, if I just adjust her positioning a bit, she will not fit into a HISS tank of the vintage variety. She will, however, I'm just going to move this out of the way. If you have the DTC HISS tank, which is a early 2000s version, again, she will fit in reasonably well into the gunner's position, which doesn't cause her too much issue. She will just about fit into the driver's seat. Now, in order to do this, obviously you have to open the canopy, but because the way her legs are, you have to rotate her legs around and kind of squeeze them together a small bit, and then flatten her in. She has the right hairpiece. She does have the right hairpiece. She can't really do it with the other hairpiece because it gets in the way. But I just need to squeeze her legs a little bit tighter so that they're in a kind of a bow shape. She does fit in, and then this will close down. She can drive the DTC HISS. It is problematic because her legs are in quite an awkward position. And then in theory, she should be able to drive this one, which is the Gi Joe Retaliation HISS, which also uses the same body as the Pursuit of Cobra HISS. So she should be able to drive both of these. Oh, yeah, I don't have a driver in here. I'll just check. She should sit in the gunner position up top easily enough. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but she should fit in there because it's just basically standing in the gunner position. I know it's a bit hard to see, but she can sit in there reasonably enough up here in the gunner position. But the question is, can she sit in the driver's seat? So if I move this, just move the cannon slightly aside so I can open the canopy a bit better. She should, because characters just basically lie in this thing. Now, I don't have my one of my HISS 2s available to see if she'll sit in the HISS 2. But for most part, most of the other vehicles, Stinger, the Cobra Stinger is right out. Even the 25th anniversary one, I would imagine, is right out. She will fit the style of version of the HISS tank. I know it's not everyone's favorite. Oop, now there's big treads. Oop. Let's pop those back into place. So it's not everyone's favorite version of the HISS tank because The previous one had actual rolling treads, which uses this body and was much better. She does have trouble fitting into vehicles, which is unfortunate because one of the main lines or staples of a Gi Joe line is vehicles and the ability to be able to fit the vehicle, said vehicle. So you might be able to squeeze her into certain vehicles. It depends on how much leg room they give on the vehicles. Stuff like the Rattler, I'd imagine the Gunners section she would fit, but the Pilot section she won't fit. Even the 25th anniversary figures had issues sitting in the pilot seat on the Rattler, Cobra Rattler. Unfortunately, I do not have one to hand. The Chap May stuff, let me just move this tank out of the way. Now this is one I was in the process of customizing to be kind of a battle damaged helicopter, but because they give you so much leg room in some of these things, she might just be able to fit just about. She can kind of fit in some of the stuff like this. It's a bit of a tight squeeze, but she can kind of fit into them. So if you have some Chap May stuff, maybe the cores stuff, she might fit some of those tanks and vehicles. Again, it depends on leg room versus like leg space, basically, versus the actual vehicle that you're using. So all in all, she is a good figure. Is she a necessary must get? It's a hard call because she's aside from the head sculpt, which is kind of fugly. In fact, I'm hoping I'll just bring that in again so you can see it. You can hopefully see how, I think it's the nose is really what makes it kind of more ugly than anything else. It's very angled and very pointed nose on this character, and it's very prominent. And because the glasses they're not full glasses, the glasses stop under her eyes because they were trying to simulate that kind of rim. The rimless on the bottom makes it look kind of awkward. I think it isn't a great look. Hopefully they might go back and redo her. I know they've redone Flint in Tiger Force. I'm not sure if they could go back and do Baroness in other color schemes, because she generally doesn't have too many other color schemes. You could try doing a Python Patrol or Crimson Baroness and try and do a new head sculpt for her. Just grab in some other 25th anniversary figures. There is Cobra Commander, and there's a 25th anniversary Destro. Or sorry, not 25th anniversary, the 50th version Destro, which is kind of a little bit more not cartoon based, but they're kind of went their own direction with. Just for some comparisons. But all in all, I do like her. Head sculpt aside, I do like the overall look and aesthetic of the figure. Again, head choice, you could possibly, there are so many companies out there doing heads for figures, you could possibly swap it out with someone else. Like Joy Toy has a ton of female heads. There's a Boris Ping has those new figures, the kind of Resident Evil based ones. You could possibly get something that might look suitable. Even Hiya has other figures in their lineup, and even just searching eBay for a custom head that might fit. In fact, actually, I do have a Joy Toy figure here. Like, you wouldn't have too much issue with matching up skin tones for her, because she doesn't have any other skin tone exposed, unlike some of the other figures. So this is one of the mechanics from Joy Toy. You could possibly potentially pop the head off. It's obviously it's not the same style hair, and she doesn't have the glasses, but like there is figures in their lines that do. So you could potentially pop that off and maybe swap heads with a figure of similar nature, but it's up to yourself. Overall, I'm kind of happy with the look of her. I'm happy I managed to pick her up, but it's a hard to recommend her with such a kind of issue, the glaring issue of her face and the fact that she doesn't really fit vehicles too well. Maybe, hopefully, they might, again, I'm kind of waffling here, but if they do go back and redo a kind of Crimson version of her, like the Crimson Guard style version of her, which Hasbro have done a Crimson Guard 3-pack with Tomax, Xehanort and Baroness in Crimson twin colors. They might do her in a Crimson Twin color style and maybe rejig. Hopefully this crotch area to give her a bit more range of movement for seating instead of having that kind of diaper crotch thing, because that was a problem with the very early Baroness figures. In fact, I have one here which I customized. The very early ones would do that same thing where their legs would just completely splay out because they couldn't get the range of movement on the hip. Hopefully they might be able to fix that going forward. Hiya Toys ones as well. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching this video, and as always, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button if you can and help grow my channel, and please hit the likes as much as you can so I can boost this video and get it out there to people who might enjoy it and might want to see if Baroness can fit a Gi Joe vehicle. So cheers, thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day. Cheers.